Hello and welcome to the first ever Try Not to Cut Yourself YouTube video. My name's Tyler, and today I'll be reviewing the Proelia TX010. Now most of you have probably never heard of this knife, or you're here because you have heard of it but you want to know more about it. So let's start off with some info on this knife. There are two models to choose from, the TX10 and the TX20. Right here I have the Proelia TX10, which is a Tonto style blade, whereas the TX20 is more of a modified drop point, if I believe. This beast comes in it comes in exactly at a 4-inch D2 tool steel blade with black G10 scales. The overall length is 8.5 inches open and 5 inches closed. It weighs a surprisingly light 8 ounces or 227 grams. And that is surprising because if you pick up and hold this knife and you feel how substantial it is in your hand, it's crazy just how light it actually is for its size. It features a liner lock and 2 sets of ball bearings for smooth action. And you can kind of see there at the pivot point, that little cap. There's one on each side, and it holds back the little compartment with your ball bearings. And it is very smooth. The first thing I noticed when I held the knife and I used it was that, wow, it is very smooth. It's buttery. It's almost as if there's no friction. There is friction, but it's very, very minimal. So it's manufactured overseas and assembled in the US, which some of you might hate, some of you might not care. I personally don't care. Everything's made in China, so you might as well get on the bandwagon. You can purchase it right now from ninjasupply.com for $150 US. That is pretty much the only place you can get this knife right now. You can call Roadside Safety Supply, but they are just going to redirect you back to ninjasupply.com and process your order through that anyways. Alright, so let's get right into the review, past all the specs here. The first thing I want to talk about is the packaging, because it was the first thing that really caught my eye when I took it out of the box was, damn, that packaging. So let me see if I can, I have the box in the background there. Let's see if I can get a good shot of that. Oh, the tripod's a little sticky. There we go. So it says Proelia, fight for what's yours. And it is a sexy box. This knife comes with a black nylon sheath. It also comes with a spare pocket clip and pocket clip screws. Ooh, losing the camera. Real professional. This is a good time to talk about the fact that this knife is a right or left hand carry, I guess you could say. I think it's more so designed to just be a right hand carry, but I mean, you can be a rebel carry in your left. But it is a tip up only carry, which for some people that's perfect, for others not so perfect. For me, I would rather have a tip down carry, but hey, you go with what you have, right? Oh, there we go. Okay, so like I said, it comes with a black nylon sheath, pocket clip and screws. Comes with an Allen key for those screws. It's not your standard hex Allen key. It's a fancy one that they make, and it comes with a warranty card. So if if it breaks for any standard purposes, like maybe machining defaults and things like that, you can get your money back or you can get a new one, which is always great to have. So the packaging, like I said, is fantastic, and it definitely echoes the quality of this knife through the quality of the packaging, and it's great to see. Okay, so let's move on to philosophy of use. So what is this knife going to be used for? Who is its main audience? I would say it's an EDC knife. It's definitely not a survival knife because it's, in my opinion, a survival knife is a fixed blade. That's just what the best ones are. I would say that you could use this in a tactical sense, but again, I prefer a fixed blade knife in terms of, tactical. If I had to kill someone, I'd probably, I'd rather have a tactical, but this does do a great job at being a tactical knife because, again, it is a Tonto style blade, so you get a little bit more puncture power through that. I've been told by the company that makes this that they've been primarily selling them to officers, or that's who that they primarily marketed these knives to, is police officers and firefighters and not so much your general public yet. They're trying to spring into the general market, but I can see why they've been selling these to police officers. It is very much a knife that you could see a police officer having. It's almost a little bit big for me as an EDC knife, but if you have a big belt full of stuff already, where you've got your gun, you've got maybe pepper spray, handcuffs, baton, whatever, throwing this knife on there is not going to make a huge difference, because again, it is only 8 ounces. It's very light. So I could really understand why they market this to police officers. It makes sense for them to carry. So that's the philosophy of use. It's very important when considering the quality or the would you buy-ness of a knife. And like I said, it is an EDC knife, but maybe for someone who's in need of maybe a little bit more high-profile EDC knife. So I have a very simple rating system for specifically EDC knives. Now, this doesn't apply to every knife, just an EDC knife, and one that I'd carry with me all the time. So there are 5 categories. Each category is worth 10 points. Just like a game show, I'm going to go through them and tell you which ones I think which categories this knife excels in and which ones it doesn't. So the first one I want to go through here is incognito-ness. I may have made up that word. This incognito-ness is a knife's ability to be out of the way and to be not alarming to others, I guess you would say. Think of a deep pocket carry knife, or a very small, thin knife along those kind of lines. This definitely doesn't fit that description. So I'm going to turn this around so you can see the pocket clip. If I can get it to stay. There we go. Might have to adjust. No, I'm good. So as you can see, that's the pocket clip on that bad boy. It is in no way a deep carry pocket clip, and I lost focus. It is a fairly good pocket clip in terms of rigidity and strength. I believe it's probably just titanium or aluminum. They definitely didn't make it out of D2 steel. But like I said, it's no way, in no means a deep carry pocket clip. You have maybe about a thumbnail's width of material sticking out your pocket. And again, for some people that's not a big deal. For me, I'd rather not, just because living in Canada and living in a big city, people will see you with this kind of knife and they'll think, oh my God, he's going to kill somebody. But, no, I'm not going to kill anybody. It's just a knife. It's a tool. Get over it, people. So in terms of incognito-ness, again, the other factor I like to look at is protrusion from your pockets. Now, I don't wear skinny jeans, but I'm a big dude, so anything that I put in my pockets, you can tell it's in my pockets. Like even phones, wallets, there's an outline on my jeans. You can tell. It's like, oh, that's his phone, or oh, that's his wallet. And when you put this knife in there, you can tell there's a big hunk of steel in there that, may or may not be very pointy, in this case, very pointy. And again, for me being in Canada, in such a big city, people don't really like that you're carrying a knife all the time. So in terms of incognito-ness, again, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10. For your everyday person, for me, not so great in terms of deep carry or hideability. But if you're a police officer or firefighter, that doesn't really matter, because you're walking around with a pistol on your hip. Maybe not a firefighter. So having this knife, it doesn't really make a difference. I'm going to turn this back around so we can get a better view of the sexiness. And it is a sexy knife. Let's move that a little bit. There we go. Refocus. Okay, so the next category in my rating system is size. Now, again, we're going back to the philosophy of use here. For your average Joe like me, it is a big knife. It's a 4-inch blade. It's an overall 8.5 inches. It's huge. It is a really big knife. Now, it's good in some aspects. Again, as a tactical knife, it gives you some reach. It gives you the ability to whip this thing out. Let's say, you're walking out of a bar late at night with your buddies, and some guy pulls a knife on you, like a little Kershaw leak or something like that, and you can whip this thing out and be like, "Beat it, buddy! My knife's fucking way bigger." In that sense, the size is good if that's what you're trying to get from it. For me, the size is not ideal. I pulled this knife out in the cafeteria a couple days ago to cut my grapefruit in half, which it did swimmingly, by the way. But my friend, she just looked at me and she was like, "Oh my God, why do you have such a big knife? Like, why do you have that? That is so dangerous. That's evil." Like, she has a knife of her own, so she's kind of used to it. But hers is a very small knife compared to mine. And, you can tell people, especially in Canada, in such a large city, they're not used to this kind of knife, just having this around in your pocket. It's not illegal by any sense of the word, but even still, it's not common. Again, if you were an officer, attracting that amount of attention would probably be a good thing. If you're in a situation where, let's say a car was overturned on the street and there's a crowd of people, they're all trying to get the person out, but they can't. If you're a police officer and you come up with this big knife ready to cut that person's seatbelt or whatever, people are going to get out of your way. They're going to see that and they're going to go, "Wow, that's a guy that knows what he's doing, and he's not dangerous, but he's not to be messed with." So in terms of size here, out of 10, I'm going to get a 5 out of 10 because for me it's not ideal. For others it's perfect. But it's not, like I said, for the philosophy of use for an average person, it's a little bit big. Next up in our categories here is weight. Now, like I said, this blade weighs only 8 ounces, which is fantastically light to say that it is an overall length of 8.5 inches and a blade length of 4 inches. Where I think it saves a lot of its weight is just the fact that it is mostly G10. The knife, like I said, the blade itself is D2 tool steel, but the scales are G10, and there's even a G10 backspacer. Let me show you that. Hopefully the camera picks that up. Yeah, there we go. So you can see there's a few lines of what I believe is probably maybe stainless steel, or I don't think it would be aluminum. Might be titanium. And then there's that big hunk of G10 backspacer in there. And I think that's where this blade really saves a lot of weight from the fact that, there's not a big hunk of steel. But yeah, for the size of the knife, it's fantastically light. Carrying around in your pocket, you don't notice it more than, a Kershaw or, a small Spyderco or something like that. Except for its very dominating size. But no, the weight is really good. It's balanced well. If you hold it by the first finger choil, I guess you could say, I don't know if that's technically a choil, but the first little indent there for your finger, if you hold it by that point, it actually balances fairly well. Now the balance point technically should be the pivot, but because it's a flipper style knife, you're obviously never going to hold it by the pivot. So I feel like they did a great job in balancing, especially considering, the front end should be so much heavier than the back end. But it's balanced very well. So for weight, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Because again, it's massive, but it's light. The next up in our category is our blade. So just the blade itself. You can see there, the blade profiling is fantastic. Maybe a little bit hard given the lighting, but it's cut away so nicely, and there's very two distinct flat edges. There's your I guess you could say base edge, and then there's the Tonto edge in the front. And they're both grinded fantastically. It's like a mirror finish grind. And again, being D2 tool steel, that edge is going to last a very, very long time, given just normal everyday use. Although being D2 tool steel, there's the catch, is that you have to, when you do sharpen this knife, you have to put in a lot of effort into sharpening it. Just because it being a high carbon steel, it's going to take you a little bit longer, probably a lot longer than if you were carrying, I don't know, 5160, or I'm not good with steels, but obviously a lower carbon steel is going to be easier to sharpen. There is a gorgeous swedge cutaway from the top there, and there is a gorgeous cutaway. I guess, I don't know if that's another swedge or if it's just a straight cutaway. You can see above the Proelia label. These are both very well machined out. They're, again, there's a lot of attention to detail, especially on the blade, and it's almost, it's kind of sad almost, because the rest of the blade isn't. It's not that it's not as nice, it's just you could tell they put a lot of effort into the blade and then they slapped some G10 on the back of it. But they definitely did a fantastic job to say this is their first knife out. And in terms of it being a Tonto style blade, you're going to be, the purpose, I guess, is that you're going to be stabbing more stuff. Not that I ever do, but with that in mind, they made that point very, very sharp. And the grind on the knife, the actual cutting edge goes right up to the point. So if you ever do have to stab something or someone with it, it's very, very sharp. And maybe if you're a police officer, maybe that's good for you, maybe that's not, I don't know. There is jimping on top of the blade. It ramps up quite a bit, but it also kind of drops down when you get to the pivot point, which is really nice. It gives you a really big chunk of real estate for your thumb, and because it ramps up like that, you can not really choke up, but you can kind of move your thumb up that ramp and get a little bit more control, which I really like. So overall, I'm going to say in the for the blade category, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's definitely a fantastic blade. They put a lot of attention to detail into it. And I like the fact that it's D2 tool steel. I think for an EDC knife of its magnitude, that's a perfect way to go. Like I said, it's going to hold an edge for a long time. Sure, it might take a little extra to sharpen it, but it's a compromise, right? All right, so now the next category up here is the action. That's how well the knife opens and closes, how well the flipper works, how well the thumb stud works, and how well those ball bearings in there work. I think the ball bearing system was a big selling point for them, or at least they thought it was going to be. A couple people on the forums basically said that, listen, hey, ball bearings aren't a new thing. We've had these for a while. It might not be a huge selling point for a lot of well-seasoned knife owners, which, by the way, I think is probably going to be the main demographic, is people that own a lot of knives and they just want to collect a bunch of knives. So for them saying that, oh, well, it has this fantastic ball bearing system, it's old news. It's just something that almost every knife should have now. But again, when I first held it and when I first used it, you could tell that it was so buttery smooth. There was almost no resistance in opening it. It just kind of, you can open the knife without even putting pressure on the flipper or the thumb stud. If you hold just the scales and you aggressively, give it momentum and try to thrust open the blade, it will open. No, it's not a bad thing. It'll never open accidentally. Like I said, you have to put a lot of force into that, but it just goes to show how smooth of an action that is. So I have some footage of me opening and closing it that I'll probably run over top of me talking. But in terms of the flipper and thumb stud, the flipper, I think, is the only way you would ever really reasonably open this knife. It does have a big aggressive thumb stud with some knurling around the edge, but it's almost a little high up, in my opinion. I think it would have worked better if you saw it directly at the end of that cutout that's there instead of above the cutout. If you have really big hands, then yes, it'll probably be fine for you using the thumb stud. For me, I find I almost have to hold the knife a bit differently when opening it using the thumb stud, and it feels a little less secure in that sense. Plus, you also have to put in more momentum from your wrist when using it. So I would never really recommend using the thumb stud, if you can use the flipper. If your flipper magically gets torn off for some weird reason, I don't know, maybe you machined it off because you don't like it, then yeah, it definitely works. But the only way I would open this knife is using the flipper. It's just the easiest way. When I first got it, I found that no, you cannot open it just pressing down the flipper. Not, you know what I mean? Like no wrist action, no momentum, just pressing down the flipper, it would not open. It would get about 90% of the way and it would just be like, nah, nope, I'm not going to go any farther. After breaking it in, I will say that yes, you very much can open it just by depressing the flipper pretty hard, and it will open very well. It has a really great metallic click when it locks into place, and that that liner lock in there, it's not very big. It's just a very thin piece of metal. I say maybe a millimeter at the most of metal in there, and but it does a great job of locking the knife. I've beated it backwards and tried to get it to to give me any reason to not like it, and it just hasn't. There is, however, side-to-side play. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. It would never really come in as a factor using this knife day to day, but after messing around with it, I have got a little bit of side play. Now you can remedy this by tightening the little caps there on the pivot point. However, once you tighten those caps, it automatically makes the action less smooth, and you have to put in so much more effort into opening the knife. So I have it kind of in a butter zone where there's, it's still really smooth, but at the same time, there's just a little bit of side-to-side play. Again, it's never really going to factor into everyday use. So for me, I'd rather have a smooth opening. Closing's easy. Like I said, the frame lock, the liner lock, doesn't take up a lot of real estate on the blade. So closing is really easy, but it is very sturdy, like I've said. And it has an incredible it is incredible in the way that the little part that you push open of the frame lock, it's just big enough that you can unlock the knife easily, but it doesn't hurt your finger. And that's a really great combination that a lot of knives seem to lack almost, is the fact that maybe there's just they're trying to save on material or whatever, but sometimes opening frame locks and even liner locks, it'll hurt your finger a little bit because there's just not quite enough material there. This knife, it does a great job of first of all, it has jimping there, which is really helpful, and it has just enough material so that you can easily unlock it, but it's not going to hurt your finger. I don't know if I've given action a score yet. I'm going to say 4 out of 10. Again, because there's that side-to-side play, and if you want to alleviate the side-to-side play, you reduce smoothness in the action, which I feel like is kind of, it's kind of a caveat that shouldn't really be there. Another reason for the low score is the fact that, again, I think that thumb stud is kind of useless where it is. I understand why they put it there, maybe aesthetically, maybe design-wise. I would have put it a little bit further down just to make it more useful. But I am giving the action a 4 out of 10. There's just little things about it that I feel like could have been done better. So the overall score, if you've been keeping track at home, has come out to 29 out of 50 for the Proelia TX010, which seems like a low score, but in reality, it's not really that low. There's a couple of 9s up there. There's a 5, a 4. What really killed it was the incognito-ness and the action. But again, don't discount this knife. For me, it gets a 29 out of 50. But maybe, like I said, if you're a police officer who already has a belt full of stuff, this is going to be perfect for you. Because again, it dominates. It's huge. It demands respect. It's very lightweight, but it gives you a lot of reach. So like I said, it seems like a low score, but it's not because I don't like the knife. It's just that for me personally, there's a few things that I find inconvenient or that I find should be different. If you like I said, if you'd like to purchase this knife for yourself, you can get it at ninjasupply.com for about $150 US. For me, I try not to bring price into knives, because if you really love a knife, then you're gonna pay whatever they want you to pay. That's just how business works. But in this case, because it's a brand new company and it's a brand new knife and it's the first one ever, you know, you kind of have to ask yourself, is $150 worth it, really, right? Like for me as a college student, $150 is a week's worth of food, even a little bit more than that. And so, you know, is it worth $150 as a college student? No, probably not. You know, as a college student, if I needed a really nice EDC knife, you know, I would probably go with this bad boy right here. That's a Kershaw Cryo Tonto Blackwash, or the knife with many names. You know, it's very similar, very different at the same time, but it's only about $45 on Blade HQ. And so for me as a broke college student, that's the one I would get first, because I would have to save up a little bit for that Proelia, whereas, you know, the Kershaw is more so just, oh, hey, that knife is under $50, perfect, I'm going to buy that one. And, you know, like I said, it's hard to bring money into it, because if you love a knife, you're going to buy that knife. But for me, it's too much money. Now, if you are, again, if you're a police officer, or if you're a knife collector, or if you just have a lot of money lying around, the Proelia is going to be the perfect knife for you, because, you know, if you're the kind of person who buys $500 Chris Reeves knives, or, you know, like a $600 Microtech, or, you know, if you're the kind of person that beats on a, you know, a $200 Spyderco knife and then throws it out because it's getting too old and rusty, then this is going to be a perfect knife for you, because it's, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not very expensive compared to some knives, and it's incredibly strong, incredibly rigid. So it all comes back to philosophy of use. Depends on who you are, what your income is, that kind of thing. Again, they've primarily marketed these knives to police officers, and I think that's a perfect fit. I think that this is a great fit for someone who is serving as a police officer, or even serving in the military, but I kind of hesitate on that one a little bit, because I feel like if I was going to be in the military, I would want a really nice fixed blade knife. But you know, again, it's all about what you like, and, you know, at the end of the day, if you really, really like something, you're going to pay whatever they want you to pay. So again, the final score turned out to be 29 out of 50, but I really did like this knife. I liked a lot about it, but there was a lot I disliked about it. Tell me what you think in the comments, just from hearing me ramble. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I usually am. So yeah, welcome to the channel. This is Try Not to Cut Yourself. I'm Tyler, and this has been the Proelia TX010. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.